The cool thing about custom properties is you can nest custom properties inside other custom properties as much as you like. They are, after all, just variables, and as long as they're defined, we can use them. This custom property nesting can be used to create rudimentary functions in CSS. So let me show you a very basic example of this just to get your imagination started. I want to create this fancy card with a faux drop shadow, and I want there to be a consistent rhythm between the width of the padding, the width of the border, and the offset of the drop shadow. For this, I'll use a series of custom properties that are all rooted in one single unit. That way, if I change this single box unit, then all the other custom properties will change with it. So let's take a look at how this is all wired together. I have this box unit that's currently set to 1 rem. Then I say the box offset, which will be the offset of the shadow here, will be a calculation of the box unit that I defined above times something. So right now it's just times 1, meaning nothing changes, but we'll change that in a little bit. Then we have the box padding, and box padding is right now just the same as box unit, but I've set it up so that I can change it later without having to change box unit. And finally, we have the box border, where we do a calculation of the box unit and divide it by 2, so that the border is half the width of the padding, effectively. Then when I scroll down in my style sheet, you'll see how I create this faux shadow. It's actually a before element, so it's a pseudo element that's been projected in behind it. It's placed behind the main element using z-index -1, and it's absolutely positioned. And then we use top and left to position it relative to the box. Now, what you see here is one example of this crude function thing I was talking about. We have this value in box border, but the value is a plus value. To change it into a minus value, so a negative value, we do a calculation and say -1 times, and then the value, and out comes a negative value. Then if we scroll further down, you'll see I've used these values in several different ways. So in the width of the card, I'm using the box border as a calculation. You can see it here. So we are subtracting the border times 2 to calculate the width. There's a lot of stuff going on here. But the key is all of the custom properties that are being used down in the style sheet are actually controlled by this single value up at the top. So if I change this value from 1 to, say, 2, look over here in the preview and you'll see what I mean. So when I do that, I'm actually changing all the values. So now the padding changes, the border changes, the offset changes, and the size of this drop box changes. If I change it to like 0.5, save again, you'll see everything changes. We have this rhythm that happens because of all these nested units. If, for example, I decide that I think the offset is wrong, I want more offset, I can go and increase the multiplication here to 2, or maybe that was too much, 1.5 perhaps, until I get the exact result I want. And I can do the same with the padding. If I think the padding should be thinner or thicker, I can just add a calc around it, and then say times 1.5. So if I want the padding to be 1.5 and the offset to be 2, I can do that, and then we get a different relationship. But the point is, all of this can now be done based on this single unit. And you can imagine you could have several situations where maybe a media query would trigger the box unit to change depending on the width of the screen. And then all of these other variables would change accordingly, so they would always have the same rhythm in the layout without having to change every single value all the time.